Hello everyone, this is Martin Biggs from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm going to do a short do-it-yourself repair video on violins. Okay, right now what we're going to be doing is fitting a bridge. Alright, now let me pan you down to my desk here and we'll show you some of the tools I use to do this. And a lot of these tools are homemade tools that you can make yourself and save some money. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the bridge. We're fitting a bridge. Okay, now these are all new bridge here. All these are new bridges, all 5 of these, and as you can tell, the feet are thick. The first place you need to start when fitting a bridge is at the bottom. You need to start at the feet. You need to sand them down till they're thin, such as this. You can see, I don't know if you can see that or not, but this one here is really thin and this is thick. This is new one and this is used bridge. You sand them down to where your feet are nice and thin. That's where you start. Start at the bottom and work to the top. Okay? Start at the bottom, fit it to where it fits, and some of these homemade tools I'm talking about are just sanding blocks. This is a sanding block, sandpaper on it, and it's sanded down to a radius. It fits the radius of your violin feet. So I do my sanding, my main sanding on these blocks. This block, this is finer paper and this is more coarse. This is for taking off a bunch. It also is radiused, if you can see that. That's a radius with a piece of sandpaper on it. I just sand it down. Start with this one, take off a lot, go to this one, smooth it out, and then I go to this piece of sandpaper. I remove these strings and everything because you don't want to do this with the strings on it. This is just here for demonstration purposes. But okay, so these just sanding blocks. I create other little sanding blocks. This is just a small sanding block, piece of sandpaper glued on there. And there's a finer one. This is for finishing your violin pieces, your bridge. Also another sanding block, alright? And I got 2 over here. This is a heavier one, and these are flat. These are not radiused, alright? So, I make these little gauges. I call them ballpark gauges because it gets you in the ballpark of what you need. And this is a string gauge, if you can see that. Alright, I don't know if you can see that or not. It may not show up on the camera. I got a pretty cheap camera. Just a little video recording camera. But this side here is 5.5 millimeters. If you can see that, it looks like it's hard to see. And this is 3.5 millimeters. Let me try to get a shot of that if you can see that. Okay, that's just a little piece of wood. And one side is 5.5, which that's what this your G string needs to be set at 5 millimeters off of the bridge. Your E string needs to be 3 millimeters off of the bridge on this side. And that's what I use this to gauge it for. It's just a quick gauge. Gives you an idea where you need to be. Now, I have a bunch of used bridges that I don't throw away because every now and then you can find one of these bridges to fit on a violin. You might just be able to put it right on there and not do any work at all except just a little tweaking. Okay. And this was also a used bridge that's going to work fine. I just fit it to sit on this violin properly. I just put down a piece of sandpaper and rubbed it back and forth. Of course, I removed the bridge and the strings, put them over there, and I sanded it down. See, I'm not going to go through the sanding because it's boring stuff. You'll know how to do that. I'm just going to talk about tools that you can use and make yourself. Alright? In which a lot of these sandpapers are tools you can use yourself. Alright? One thing you have to do is fit your bridge properly. Your bridge needs to be, your feet need to fit properly. Your bridge needs to be at the proper height, which is normally this this fingerboard needs to be 21 millimeters off the top of the violin. That's where it needs to be, and sometimes it's not, and that's another adjustment. That's an advanced adjustment that you, if you get into it there, you can learn that later. But anyway, you need to fit the bridge according to your fingerboard. Okay, and normally your fingerboard is at 21 millimeters, and your bridge usually works out to be somewhere around 33 millimeters high, give or take a little bit, because violins vary here and there. Okay, so let me talk about other things now. Okay, such as once you get your bridge fit, you'll need to before you get your bridge fit and you get strings on there, you don't tighten them up. You will have to set your sound post. Okay, and that's also something you'll may have to learn how to do too, but it's not that difficult. And this is a homemade tool. Okay, that's a homemade tool that you can make yourself, probably a clothes hanger or something. You see that? It's just pointed on the end, you stick the sound post to it, you stick the sound post, of course the sound post goes in the other way. If I was setting the sound post, this violin would be turned around. It's in the wrong position to set a sound post right now for me. You gotta turn it around. But anyway, the sound post just goes right down in there. You just fit it right down in that hole. It's like that. And then you take this other tool, which this is a store-bought tool. I bought this off the internet. But I need both of these to set this. And I didn't want to buy two of these, so I made this. Okay? So you just put this down in there, and you come in from the other side, and you adjust it and stand it with this tool. Now that's a skill in its own, and it's not really that difficult. But you just have to be slow and gentle and not damage your violin as you're trying, because if you wiggle this around too much, or these pieces of metal, you can damage your violin. So just be careful. Alright, so that's a tool that you can make. And I made other tools too for picking up sound post. I could actually go inside a violin when the sound post is down and pick them up with these two homemade tools right here. And you can see it's just little pieces of metal bent. That's all it is. I can't really demonstrate. I wish I could, but I need another camera guy to pick it up. It'd probably be hard to pick up anyway, so I probably can't demonstrate that for you. Okay. And this is a tool to pick up the sound post inside there also, which you can buy. This is another tool for measuring the length of your sound post, and all three of these come together in a package deal on like eBay, so you can find those fairly cheap if you want to get into that. If you want to get in that deep. Okay, we're just getting into the basics right now. You'll need something to do some measuring with, and it has to be in millimeters. Okay, so you measure millimeters so you can measure your string height. 5 millimeters here, 3 millimeters there. As long as you can stay in those sort of specifications, you'll be okay. Now, another thing is when you fit a bridge, when you make a bridge from a new stock like this, you start at the bottom, work your feet down so it sits good on your violin, and then you go to the top and sand it down to where you need it, which this is really close. It's a little high, so this is a great starting point right here. Okay, if you weren't going to use this bridge, you could get it close, take it off, mark it on this bridge as long as your feet are right. Get your feet right first, then mark the top, and then sand that down and fit it in there. As long as it sits where you want it, that's at least the first step. Then what do you have to do after you get the bridge height? What you do after you fit the feet down and get the bridge height, you got to thin it. Alright, it needs to be 4 millimeters thick. And you could use a gauge like this, is what I use. I just get it right at 4 millimeters. Okay, it's very accurate, but you could use other things. If you don't have one of those, there's other small tools that you could use, such as something like this. It's just a small caliper. You can use something like that. But anyway, you get the feet on, you get the feet sanded down properly, you get your height, and then you get your width, which is 4 millimeters. You don't want it any less or any more than about 4 millimeters. Okay, that is actually specification. All right, and a lot of other things you need to do once you get your bridge set. You get the height, you get the width, and then you got to whittle it down a little bit more. I don't have any examples here that I could show you. I had one, but I don't know where it's at. This is a good one, I guess. Once you get your bridge set on your violin, you get your height, you get your thickness, then you'll start taking out some material in these areas. Okay? You just remove it with your little knife. Any kind of little knife, which I have these little X-Actos here. Alright. And I don't know if you noticed, but these little points right here, right there, come to a point. And they're not pointed on these, so you have to do that yourself. And the easiest way I found to do it is with this little knife and a flat blade, if you could see that. This blade is flat. It doesn't come to a point. It's a flat blade. And what you do is you just stick it in there and just push like this. You push away and it won't break, because if you take it like this with a pointed blade and you go down, you'll break that. It'll break off. So you push it. You just kind of get in there and just push up a little material at a time until it's out. And then you change your blade to a pointed blade. A nice pointed blade, maybe thin. This might not be exactly the right one, but I'm just giving you an idea what you need to do. So you get in there and start taking out material from these areas. And the ideal is just to make a thin and light bridge. The lighter, possibly you're going to get better vibration transfer. Okay, so that's another thing you might want to think about. And then, you know, I don't know that I need to talk about a whole lot more stuff, but you do need these things, such as these sanding blocks that you can make yourself. You can make these gauges yourself, and you can even make the sound post setter yourself. Okay, this setter. And I didn't make this thing myself, but you could see it's not that difficult. If you look at it and understand it, you could probably make something similar to this, because this is just, I just use this to push or pull the sound post in whatever direction. So you could probably make something similar to that. This is pretty important. This little sound post setter, like I said, it's nothing more than a little pointed piece of metal. Okay, you create it, bend it, and you just put your sound post down in there. Like I said, you put sound post from the other side, though. It goes in this other side, but other than that, that's pretty much a lot of the basic stuff I talked about that I wanted to cover. And of course, when you get it strung up, you'll probably need a good tuner. Now, I go online and tune from gettune.com, and I just hear a tone and I match that tone. Okay, so that's the easiest way for me to tune my violins or my instruments, all of them. And this is another homemade little tool that I got out of a yard sale box. And at the bottom, I didn't do anything to this. It was bent, and it looked just like this when I got it. This is a tool I use to tighten up the chin rest. It's a very basic little tool. You just stick it in a little hole and you turn it and you tighten it up. So that's another tool that you can make yourself for a violin. Alright. I think one thing I forgot to mention is when you take off your old strings, save your old strings. Don't throw them away, because these right here that I got on this, these two old strings right here holding this bridge up. Now, the reason I do this is because I can get my height. I can put this bridge in there and I can tell whether it's too high or too low, and I know where to start working a bridge as far as the height goes. Okay, so that's another thing. Save your strings and use your old strings for violin repairs. Just like this right here. Okay, that's it. Like I said, when I go to sand the feet, I just remove this, move it out of the way. I take a piece of sandpaper. This is the final sanding. Okay, I use these bigger blocks to get most of the material off. Go to a finer block, get it thinner, and then I go to the final fitting. You want to final fit your feet on top of the violin so it sits right down on it. That's very important. And all these other things, like these flats, I'll take these flats and I'll just thin it to the 4 millimeters. Okay, just sand it, thin it to the 4 millimeters, and then I take these finishing blocks. This is very fine, and I smooth it out. You want to get it very smooth, as smooth as possible, and you can just do really fine tuning with these finish blocks. So I don't know what else to cover. Pretty much covered all this stuff. You got your homemade sanding blocks, you got your homemade depth gauge, and this is also something that if you don't have a bridge to use, you can make what I call a ballpark gauge, and you can just get something, set it on top, and put your strings across there like that, and then start from there as far as your string height goes. You know, you put that up there, put your strings across it. If I can do this on camera, because my strings are a little tighter probably than to do this, but anyway, let's go ahead and get that down in there. It's been a little difficult, as always, but anyway, that's what you do there. It's not too important to show that, but anyway, you know, you can do these sort of repairs at home yourself, save money, learn how to do something. It's fun, simple. It's a great, what I call deep winter project when you can't get outside. Stay at home and do something. Thank you, and as always, like, share, and subscribe. Have a good day.